Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And we are very, very proud to be part of the Variety Sports Network. And you'll notice there are three when there are normally four. My understanding is that Ben is on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan right now and is currently sitting in the little tiki bar there in Tatooine, entertaining, no doubt, some rather strange customers. In any case, best wishes to him on his travels. And guys, welcome back. Great to see you. And we thought we were going to have our British friend coming in tonight. And unfortunately, she's got some stuff going on. And for those of you that don't know, Ellie, she's been on the show many times before. And we thought we were going to have her. We thought we were going to have lots of British swearing tonight, so we'll just have to keep it American swearing as usual. And you can also already see that Scarps is doing a bit of trolling there. Anyway, so speaking of Ben, he's in the chat. Apparently, there's Wi-Fi on the airplane. Safe flight, Ben. Safe flight. In any case, give me your best description, Scarps, of Sunday's victory in Las Vegas in gambling terms.
Ooh. It was a lot closer than the final score indicated.
I'm sorry, what does any of what you're saying have to do with gambling?
What was the spread?
I have no idea. I'm just talking about it's because it's in Vegas. Casino.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were asking about like if I laid money on the Steelers. Well, okay, so I don't even know how to describe this. I'm not I'm trying to think.
Well, here, can I give you an example?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For me, it's a win, but it's kind of like when you go into the casino and you have like $50 and you're like, you know what? I'm going to sit down at the slot machine. I'm going to play for an hour and see how I'm doing at the end of an hour. Or if I'm out of money by an hour, then I'm just done and I'm leaving. And it felt like we had some money left, meaning we won. But I didn't walk away feeling real good about it, even though the score said I finished in the positive side, if that makes any sense at all.
Okay, so I guess I would say, like, I'm at the bar and there's like an attractive woman that's interested in me, and I think she's into me, but then she tells me she's a hooker.
Wow, that escalated very quickly.
And I still get laid, but I really don't feel good about it. But I win. Win's a win, you know?
Thank God this show's on at 10 p.m. So the FCC can't come after.
Hey, everybody, we're going to get laid.
A Rodney reference. I love it. Ian, what would your gambling analogy or reference be in terms of the Steelers win on Sunday?
Yeah, so it's like you're playing poker and you come in with like pocket eights and you're like, well, this is kind of a middle pair. It could be good. It could be bad.
Yeah.
And then, the other guy hits like 2 pair on the flop and you're like, well, shit. But then somehow you pull off a straight, like a runner straight to come out with the win. And it looks good in the end because you hit a straight, but you were kind of in shitty spot after, the flop came out.
Perfect. Both very solid Vegas analogies, for sure. And what the hell has Ben in the chat talking about? We haven't even really started talking about the actual game or the team. We're just doing these, and he's having a whole conversation with himself right now.
Just like the show normally, right?
Exactly like the show normally. He's just he's got all that shit going on. What in the world? My God, I'm gonna have to block him out of this chat. Anyway, look, let's get right to it because there obviously is a big topic, and that is the quarterbacks. Mike Tomlin said in his presser that Russell Wilson is in consideration to play this week. And if you pay any attention to what the beat writers are saying based on practice, Russell has been taking the first reps with the drills, first reps with first team. And it seems like it's trending in that way. And before I turn it over to you guys, I will say this. Justin Fields handled himself as well as any player in that situation I've seen in a long time. He could have been down on himself. He could have been negative, and he went the complete opposite. He said, "I got to play better," and he was great about it. And I'll just leave it at that. I thought he did a nice job. So Scarps, what do you think is going to happen this week? Do you see Wilson starting, or is this just all smoke screen?
Yeah, I see Russ starting. They haven't said it yet, but signs are pointing to Russ starting.
Yeah.
And I would say, unlike recent years where QB1 was terrible, I think both of these guys are decent. I think they do things differently. Obviously, Justin Fields is more athletic and is a better runner, but I absolutely believe Russell Wilson is a much better passer, and I think that's why they're going to Russ in this instance. There's that, and then he's healthy, and sometimes the Steelers treat the depth chart like a piece of paper, and other times they don't. And Tomlin, since day one, said that Russ is in pole position, and he's been first on the depth chart since then. And truly, I think, the only reason Justin Fields has been starting games is because Russ got hurt, and he hasn't been healthy. Well, he's healthy now. They're looking for a spark in the passing game. And going back to what you said about Justin Fields, the way he handles himself, man, I really am. I'm very, very impressed. He is mature. He is accountable. He is a leader. And I had to bring up Kenny Pickett today, and of course there were Jagos in the chat that were like, "Why are you still talking about him? Why he's gone? What do you care?" I care because he was in a similar situation last year where he was QB1, he got hurt, and he lost his job to Mason Rudolph.
No.
And instead of him, being accountable or being a leader, he was asked if he learned anything while, sort of taking a step back, and he said, no. And it's like, Justin Fields flat out saying that, shit, if I would have just played better, like I this probably wouldn't be, and in a way, he's, I think he thinks highly of himself, and I think he also understands that he can improve. But I'll get back to his statistics. I'll leave it at that. So Ian, go ahead and chime in, and then you can come back.
Yeah. All right. So first off, Steelers fans, not you guys in the chat. You guys in the chat are awesome. You not only enjoy our show, but are very knowledgeable people. But some Steelers fans have become so brain dead after watching Kenny Pickett for 3 years that they are convinced that a quarterback who is averaging 184 yards per game and just over 1.5 touchdowns per game, if you include his rushing touchdowns, is somehow like the next Tom Brady or the next Patrick Mahomes. Like, Justin Fields was doing enough to win, but it wasn't enough to be competitive with the top teams. If you look at a lot of the comparable stats, Fields was 21st in yards per attempt, 25th in yards per game, 20th in QBR, which is different than quarterback rating, where he was 15th. But whichever of those four statistics you want to use, he's somewhere between 15th and 25th in the league. So basically, Fields was a bottom half starter. And as we saw last year, if we can get like a top half starter, this team can be really good and really competitive. Yes, we put up 32 points this week, which could have been 33 if we'd kicked that extra point. But nevertheless, this game still, and Ryan kind of referenced it from the outset, this game had that feeling to me of when Bill Cowher used to say there's a fine line between 6-10 and 10-6.
Yeah.
I could pick 4 plays in this game, and if they go the other direction, we lose this game. And 2 of them were roughing the passer penalties.
Yep.
So, like Fields he had a couple nice throws, but Fields 2 of his 5 best plays in this game were getting roughing the passer calls that kept touchdown drives alive. So I think what they're looking at is they just want more out of that quarterback position. And even if you add in Fields' rushing yards, he's only averaging like 230 total yards a game. So are you telling me Russell Wilson can't throw for 250 in a game? Like, I think that's what they're looking at is even if you take Fields' rushing out of it, which Wilson isn't going to give you, can Russ hit those open receivers that are there early in the down, whereas Fields isn't hitting those guys, that there are guys coming open. And sorry, Ryan, I know you had another thought, but the other thing I think that's going through their heads is starting Russ not only gives you a look at what Russ can do, it also gives you a sense of, is Arthur Smith's offense actually working? Because once Chris Carter, who does some great work on Twitter and other places, posted some like all 22 clips of, passes over the last 2 games where Fields had open guys early in the concept and either didn't see them or rolled out and tried to make something else happen. And it's like, if there's a quarterback that sees that and can hit that, then maybe Arthur Smith's offense isn't as shitty as we all think it is.
Yeah.
Is the common denominator, Scarps, the offensive line, though? Because this is going to be the 5th different starting lineup in 7 games. And I think there's this feeling that Russ is going to be statuesque back there and he's going to get killed. I don't think that gives him enough credit because he still is mobile. He's not Fields, but
I guess we'll see, right? I guess we're gonna find out, but I think no, I don't think Russ is going to be able to run like Justin Fields is, but I think Steelers fans are treating Russ as if like he lost his leg, like he has no legs, like he's he had more rushing yards last year than all 3 Steelers he had more rushing yards last year. He had triple the amount of rushing yards last year than all 3 Steelers quarterbacks combined. So it's not like, and I'm not asking the dude to run for 50 yards a game. I just need him to move when he needs to.
Yes.
And that was one of the biggest things last year was that they didn't have designed runs for Kenny or Mitch. And I don't want them to have design runs for Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson is going to frustrate you, but like the guy's not dumb. Like he knows how to move. And if he's healthy, he can scramble for 6. So it's not 3rd and 10, you know what I mean? Like, and Fields is probably going to get the first down. Now there's a difference, but, the biggest thing to me this week, and I agree. I totally agree with Ian. Like we have been so starved for half decent quarterback play that we watched Justin Fields, who has not played that great. I mean, he has 10 touchdowns in 6 games. He's accounted for 10 touchdowns in 6 games. He only has 1 turnover. But if Steelers Freak earlier talked about context, Fields leads the league in fumbles. He has 6 fumbles. And for fuck's sake, how many of those, if they go the other way, especially in Atlanta in that opener, we're talking like totally different. And then he's had at least 3 straight games now of a throw that should have been picked off and wasn't. Yep. And I know I get on Steelers fans and say, well, you can't say coulda, shoulda, woulda, but you can. I mean, you can. It doesn't mean it comes to fruition. But getting back to Fields, look at it. That's a new thing now. When people don't like stats, they say, "Well, look at the tape." So then I look at the tape and I'm like, okay, he's missing wide open guys. He looks like he's making up his mind at the line who he's throwing it to before the ball is snapped. He doesn't see the field well. He doesn't go through his progressions. And I'm not saying anything that isn't clear if you watch the game or watch a couple snaps on watch the tape. I don't understand why Steelers I do understand why Steelers fans think this guy is the franchise and he's amazing, because literally our quarterback play has been terrible besides Mason Rudolph for like 3 years now.
The funny part, Scarps, is and you and Ian have both referenced that, is that I saw somebody talking about in a very positive manner about the fact that, he had thrown for an average of 160 or something like that yards. And I was so blown away by that, thinking, oh, wait a minute, this is not 1973.
And then
what are we talking about here?
And Ian is spot on. And I actually didn't. This is the first time I started, looking at some of the categories. But you're right, Ian. Justin Fields is so mid statistically. And yeah, he has 5 rushing touchdowns. That's great. But looking at, average net yards per attempt, again, he's 19th. QB rating, 15th. QBR, 20th. Completion percentage, 16th. He is 15th to 25th. And
he's Mr. Mid.
Ian, of course, I trust you. But I'm just saying, Jesus Christ, you would have thought they were taking Ben Roethlisberger in his prime out. It is just, and again, this just goes to show how desperate we are for somebody that we want to believe in. And I'm going to say this, the same sort of infatuation with Fields right now, and he is so much better than Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of infatuation that people had with Pickett as they do with Fields. And I'm going to say this about Fields, though. Fields has started 40-something games in this league. I think we know who he is.
Yes. That's what I was just going to add.
Kenny Pickett, I think we know who he is too, but we're probably never, ever going to get to see him start routinely in this league.
Not on the regular.
So
no.
If you think Justin Fields is the best that we can do, that just goes to show how either young you are that you never saw Kent Graham play, or just how desperate I think we all are for solid to good to great quarterback play.
And in the defense of some, we went from Kenny Pickett, who last year was probably about the 37th or so best quarterback in the league, to Mitch Trubisky, who was 45th, to Mason, who was actually, in the very short time he played, actually performed like a top half starter. Didn't get it done in the playoffs, but still performed like a top half starter in the short sample size that he played. So now we get truly average quarterback play, and we think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, because we went from it's like Ben's not here, so I can make this analogy, right?
Right.
It's like from going from eating literal shit on a pizza to eating pineapple on a pizza and being like, oh, this is delicious. This is the best thing ever. And it's wait till you try bacon, my dude. Let me introduce you to meat on pizza, and then we'll see what you think. But we're not there yet. So, maybe that's unfair. Maybe we're up to olives and green onions or so. We're not to meat yet, though. We're not to the meat lovers pizza, but oh, Mark, your lights went out.
My light went out. I'm still here. Damn. So hang with me.
I like
SCB
this.
After Dark.
Yeah.
Let the hate flow through you.
Yeah. I am your father.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, because Melvin and Freak have both talked about this, is the fact that, can Justin Fields be developed? And as Scarp said, we kind of know who he is now. It's 40 plus games. What about the fact that, is it the coaching? Is it not? personally, and I'm going to go run and get a light bulb here, and I'll let you guys chat. Personally, I think he is what he is now. I'm not saying that you can't find coaches that can't get him to do things, but I really think there's been enough test cases out there. So I'll go get a light bulb and leave it to you guys.
I can't believe Mark's light bulb burned out in the middle of the show. This is fucking wild. Okay, so I think kind of what people have said in the chat too, but I do think Fields kind of is what he is at this point. And even thinking back to the offseason when we were even considering trading for him, a lot of our discussion on the show was about, I don't know if Justin Fields can read a defense. He's going to look at his first read and then tuck it and run. And he has hung in the pocket a little bit more, but he's still not seeing things. And to go back to something we talked about on the show last week, there was that clip of, I think it was Kurt Warner, that talked about how young QBs these days are taught to go through their progressions and not taught how to read defenses. And that's why some of the old guys like the Flaccos of the world are able to come in and have success, because they're like, oh, I know what defense they're running. I know what concept my offense is running. I know what guy's going to be open. So they know basically before the ball is snapped where it's going to go. And that's the other thing you get with Russ, is you get a guy who's actually been around and knows how to read a defense and knows what the passing concepts are going to be and where to go with the ball. Now, does he still have the arm strength to get it there? I mean, the one quarter he played in the preseason looked like he was really kind of putting a lot of his body into his throws. So that's another question that remains to be seen. But Mark's really going for the mood lighting here also. So Ryan, I'll turn it over to you and let you talk, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah. I think so. And it's I bring up Tom Brady because obviously he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I know we hate him, but I think he is a terrible analyst.
He is.
And now that he's like a part owner of the Raiders, he can't like go to any other team's facility. So like his prep work's going to be even worse. And I feel bad for Greg Olsen because I'm a big Greg Olsen fan, but they know people are going to tune into Brady. Anyway, getting back to Brady, I've thoroughly enjoyed Brady's interviews following his retirement. And there's one where he talks about, when I get up to the line of scrimmage and I look at the defense and I read the defense, I sit there and think, is the play call that we have going to win? Like, am I going to win? Is this going to work? And this is no disrespect to Justin Fields, but he definitely does not understand that. And the next question is he allowed to audible out of that? And I think a guy like Russ does understand that, and he will have the ability to call out of that or figure something out or audible. Somebody I can't remember who it was, and I apologize, but as I said all along, they hired Arthur Smith. It was a safe hire, and they did it because they wanted to try to salvage Kenny Pickett's career.
Yeah.
And the first person that they signed was Russell Wilson. And I think Arthur Smith was probably like, yeah, okay, I can work with this. And then they get Justin Fields. And in my opinion, if you want Justin Fields to succeed, this team needs better coaching, and they need to build an offense around Fields like they did in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. And, today, a lot of people's opinions were that, Arthur Smith doesn't want to go to Russ based on what Arthur Smith said. I think Arthur Smith was being a good coach, a good coordinator, a good colleague, a good friend, and he listened to the PR staff, which I appreciate, because what's he supposed to say? No,
right.
Fields is mid. I want to go to Russ. Because I bet you those film sessions and those team meetings are a little bit different. Because if Arthur Smith is watching film, he's sitting there thinking like, Jesus Christ, I got guys running wide open, and I got a quarterback that would rather tuck it and run or just check down. So, again, I got nothing against Fields. at all. And I really do appreciate, like, he did the job he was supposed to do. He was the backup. He came in, he helped the team get to 4-2. He was part of that. Winning team win and loss is a team stat. It's not a quarterback stat. But like we're acting like he's elite.
Well, and I'm going to go right
But
back to
Ryan,
what
a bunch of people tweeted QB1. Doesn't that solidify the fact
You
that
know, and
means everything.
and Steelers Freak was making fun because he said I'm only half drunk. So here we go. But you notice it's always every asshole with a blue check mark that's just trying to get $7.84 a month out of Elon Musk. Like it's always like, hey, listen, we
got a blue check mark now on the SCB account. So
we are a
And
proper
they had a special.
we are a proper and professional group here. Okay, we don't
You're
tweet he a
fucking
Steeler. We don't tweet he a Steeler every
Right.
5 seconds.
No. No.
So
But going back to what I think Ian said it about, Bill Cowher, the fine line between 6 and 10, 10 and 6. Look at the fine line, and Scripps, you alluded to it with the amount of times the ball's been on the ground. I mean, if you take half of those and those get actually into the hands of the opponent, I mean, we could be talking about something drastically different than being 4-2 here.
But even in this Raider, to recap the Raiders game, once again, it's fucking TJ Watt punching the football out of people's hands. Like,
Right.
if Amir Abdullah scores there, it's going to be 22-15.
Yep.
And yeah, maybe we go right down the field. Maybe we don't. You don't know. You never know. And kudos to the defense for getting 3 turnovers. And then, we had a punt block on special teams.
Yeah.
People were acting like our offense was amazing.
Well,
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and after the punt block, we went backwards.
Yes, and by the way, the Raiders were a JV team. That might have been one of the worst football teams I've ever watched take the field. They were terrible.
They were, by the end of that game, they were right up there with. Do you remember that
they were like an expansion team?
No, I was thinking there. Ryan, do you remember that game? Oh gosh, I want to say 2008 against the Rams, where the Rams had like nothing to play for.
No, it was 2011. Charlie Batch started the game, and Trey Essex started at center.
Yeah, but the Rams
got a game ball.
The Rams had nothing to play for, and they just did not care, and you could tell. Like that's one of the worst NFL performances I've ever seen. Was that game against the Rams?
Do you remember who started that game?
Well, you just said Charlie Batch.
Yeah, for the Rams.
Oh, for the Rams. Oh, was it? Steven Jackson at running back was like the only guy who was trying on that whole team. Right. But
was it Wolford?
No, that was before him.
It was Kellen Clemens.
Kellen Clemens.
I'm pretty sure it was. But the funny thing about that is that Steven Jackson had a 100-yard game.
Yeah.
And I remember the defense was fucking pissed that he got 100 yards in that game because he was literally the only weapon they had. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that Steven Jackson broke the streak of 100 yard rushers against the Steelers. They
didn't allow one for
they had
4 years
forever.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember they were so pissed.
I agree with you guys. I think they're going to go with Wilson this week, and I think the hope is that his understanding of the offense will allow him to get in and out of plays that are necessary. I think it's also about his ability to process and get the ball out, but I also would caution that he's going to take sacks. Let's just hope that those aren't accompanied by fumbles or bad throws for interceptions and stuff. One of the first things I tweeted after that game last week was that Kelvin Austin was running wide open all game long, and they could never find him. And they have to watch that film and say, Justin, why are you not seeing this? What are you not seeing? Because there were lots of times when he was open, and maybe that's what Russell Wilson solves. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get, if Russ can throw for 275, and the other thing too, and Aaron brought this up in the chat, and it was a really good point, was that just because Russ is the starter doesn't necessarily mean there's not going to be a package of Justin Fields plays. Fields' best weapon's been his legs, and especially in short yardage.
You'd be stupid not to have a package for him.
Yeah, and especially in short yardage and goal line situations, 3rd and short, 4th downs, 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. Bring him in, let him run the read option, see what happens. Like, it's just because Russ is the quote unquote starter doesn't mean Russ gets 100% of the snaps. Like,
right.
I think by this point, he's played 6 games for you. You know what he can do well and what he can do to help you win games. And that is basically being your best goal line running back. So if that's the case, then let him do that. And that can still help you win games.
I agree. And that's my biggest concern, is that they're going to get in the red zone and they're not going to know what to do because he always bailed them out. At least that's what I feel like anyway. Alex Highsmith is supposed to be back this week. He is definitely trending towards that. Scarps, how big is that for him to come back?
I mean, it's big because, I'm again, TJ Watt is having a great year, but it's not as it normally is. But
Right.
he's still like the only consistent player that we have. Although Cam's having a pretty good year too.
He is.
But TJ didn't have a pressure against the Raiders, and watching the tape, they actually really did do a good job.
It was unreal what they were doing.
Taking him out. And there's been a few teams this year that I think have put out a decent blueprint on how to try to stop him. Saying it's gonna work. Alex Highsmith is really solid against the run. And my muse is here. Hello, Matt. My Alex Highsmith is really good against the run.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just Twitter or whatever, but people fall in love with Nick Herbig in small sample sizes.
Yep.
Like, yeah, that's great. Listen, when you have 2 sacks and a forced fumble and 18 snaps, yes, I'm going to commend that. But when you stretch that out over 65, 70 snaps, it still looks good, but it doesn't look as good. And Nick Herbig he's not ready yet for that. He's just not. And to say, like, again, everybody says I'm a hater and I'm negative and this and that. Jesus Christ. The moment Alex Highsmith went down, everybody on Twitter was like, oh, don't worry about it.
We got this.
We got Nick Herbig.
Yep.
And then he went down and they're like, we got fucking Jeremiah Moon, baby. Like, we're going to the moon. Like, it's just like this constant, like trying to reassure yourself that this team is better than it is. But anyway, getting back to Alex Highsmith, it's big for TJ, but I'm always nervous about, say this about Russ too. I'm always nervous about guys coming back from injuries, especially the old groinus erectus. That's a rough one.
The groinus erectus. It's fantastic. It was fascinating to see what the Raiders were doing. And as Matt pointed out, it was like, it was kind of like a guy on the old, let's make a deal, where you had to go through one door, the next door, the next door. And that was kind of TJ's day. It was like, got to go through the tight end, then the tackle, then a running back, and maybe you'd get to the quarterback. And he still found a way to impact the game, which that's what great players do. Great players find ways to impact when they can't do it the way they normally do. And I'm hopeful that with Highsmith back, number one, it will be better against the run, but yeah, it will force the Jets perhaps, to have to not be able to put so many guys on TJ's side. Yes, Monty Hall freak. Thank you very much.
Isn't the
Monty.
Jets starting tackle? Or no, that's the Giants starting tackle. That's
I think
Andrew Thomas for the Giants is out for the year.
he
That's
is.
It was one of the New York teams. I
Yeah,
saw it and I was like, that's a good matchup. But yeah,
The Jets tackles are not great though.
yeah,
They're not, and I can see Watt getting to A-Rod a couple times, given the certain situation.
and Rodgers will hold on to the ball a lot, and Rodgers will make some dumb throws. And while I'm talking about it, I don't think Rodgers' arm is as strong as he thinks it is, or as it used to be, because he's thrown some just absolute moon balls that are just like prayers down the field that he like hopes guys can get. So
I agree with you. I don't think his arm is what it once was. I do think he'll be more enthusiastic this week with Devontae back. Whether or not that translates, I don't know. But I think you'll see a little more of the older Rodgers this week.
I'd agree with that.
Melvin just texted me. He is enjoying Jack Daniel's triple mash tonight.
Oh, Melvin. Good choice, my dude.
Triple mash. You know what? I'm going to steal this from Matt here because this is a great point, and it's something that we talked about in the preseason and in our preview. If you would have gone back before week 1 and said, okay, Steelers will be 6-2 going into the bye, all of us, all four would have like signed on the dotted line and been like, yep, take it. And I'm not ready to go there yet. I think both of these teams are going to be real tough outs. I don't think the Giants are nearly as bad as people thought they were. That's not to say that Danny Dimes can't throw some balls in our hands, but I don't know. We'll get to our picks later on, but I just 6-2 would be great. Would be absolutely great considering what we have over the last half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a question that was bouncing around my head.
Okay.
And this might be a bad question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So we all know the last couple of years with the offensive coordinator that shall not be named, we averaged very poor, 15, 18 points per game.
Okay.
We're at 20.7 points per game right now, which is slightly better, but still bottom half of the league, right?
With a huge day on Sunday. There's my context.
Yeah.
No, and that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you see as a quote unquote successful day for Russell Wilson? Like, does he have to go out and put up 27, 28 points for it to be successful? Or if they go out and beat the Jets, 17-14, is it right? I'm trying to put it in context, right? Because we were winning those low scoring rock fights with Fields.
Right.
So what do you think success for Russell Wilson looks like?
I will just say this. I think the biggest thing overall is he has to win, because even if he plays well and they lose, there's gonna be questions, and I don't like that, but there will be.
That was actually bouncing around my head that what if they go out and lose 30-27 or something?
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
You don't be stealing my thunder.
I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No,
go ahead, Scarps.
I think. I mean, so the Jets' defense isn't too bad. I mean, they're not bad.
No.
Jets' defense isn't too bad. Sauce Gardner is going to annoy George Pickens, so then it opens it up for these nameless gray. Remember, we used to talk
nameless
about
gray faces.
I go back to the tape on this show. I've talked about the Steelers becoming the nameless gray faces, and we are literally the nameless gray faces now. But
that's right. We will be Sunday night.
What I think Russ brings to the table is he's going to find the Van Jeffersons. He's going to find the Muths, or the Darnell Washingtons or the Scotty Millers. And I'm going to tell you this right now, and we're going to talk about it later. But our defense, even with TJ Watt, who's great, our defense is so predictable. It's not even funny.
Scrubs, I want you to finish your thought on the offense and stuff, because then
Sorry, go ahead. Anyway,
no, that's okay. We'll turn the conversation to that.
So I think Russell Wilson is actually going to have a good game. I really do. I think Russell Wilson potentially could have a 300-yard game and a couple touchdowns.
Wow.
And I say that because their run defense is pretty solid. And I think Najee is a little full of himself after running against
the JVs.
After running against the bad news Bears. That's not the same sport, but Little Giants. There we go.
Little Giants.
And then Jaylen Warren is just, he's hurt, but oh man, not a good year for him, health wise. And then Cordarrelle Patterson's not playing. I think they're going to have to throw the ball because they're going to have to score points. So
I agree. It makes sense to me when you say that. And Najee is not going to have a 100-yard game this week. I hope I'm wrong. Definitely hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that's going to happen. Ian, I want to finish your thoughts on Wilson, the offense, whatever, and then we'll talk a little defense.
Yeah. So I think the thing that scares me is what I just said. What if Russ goes out, puts up 3 or 4 touchdowns, but we still lose, and then it's going to be, well, they went away from Fields, and Fields was winning games, and and yes, Fields just had a game where they scored 32 points and all that. So I think they're capable of doing some good things, and honestly, you can succeed in this league with those quote unquote nameless gray faces on offense. I mean, for years, the Patriots made basically no-name receivers into guys that looked like stars because Tom Brady was that good at A, reading defenses, and B, calling hot routes and knowing what his guys were good at. And who was it? Was that Chris Hogan? Was that little dude who just ran roughshod over us?
Oh, he torched us.
He played lacrosse.
Yeah,
he's a lacrosse kid.
Yep. Yeah. Someone else is like a rugby player or something. You can go play receiver for the Patriots. Sure, you can have 150 yards against the Steelers and never do anything else later.
Yeah.
But I do think the flip side of what we talked about with Russell Wilson actually being able to read a defense and know where to go with the ball and all that is that Aaron Rodgers knows how to do the same thing. Yeah, his arm might not be as strong, but he's still a smart, heady player. Devontae Adams is a load to bring down. He's a big dude. He's tough after he gets the ball in his hands. And, they've still got Garrett Wilson. And somehow Alan Lazard is their leading receiver because Aaron Rodgers is a guy who's I like my dudes and I'm only going to throw to my dudes.
Right.
If I was Garrett Wilson, I'd be demanding a trade out of New York. Be you brought in Alan Lazard and now Devontae Adams and aren't going to throw to me who you picked in the first round. Sure, if Garrett Wilson wants to come to Pittsburgh and play with his old buddy Justin Fields, that'd be real good for us. So we'll see what happens. But I think this one kind of has the makings of a low-scoring affair, and really, I think the key for Russ is to not turn the ball over.
Agreed. Has to play clean football. Has to.
Yeah, but that's what Mike Tomlin preaches all the time: is don't turn the ball over.
So. Yes, we want Russell Wilson to not turn the ball over. But if Mike Tomlin is telling him, you better not turn the ball over, that's a different story. Right. And I feel that he was probably telling that to Fields.
Yeah.
Because I felt that they were scared on offense last year.
Yeah. They've 100% been living in their fears for a long time on offense.
Much more so than he claims to not be living in their fears.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Stats are often for losers.
What a great quote.
Guys, I'm gonna take a quick segue here. I got an email this week, and I don't do this very often, but I'm gonna do this for this lady. She's very nice. This weekend, coming up in Pittsburgh is the Downtown Neighbors Alliance is putting on their street festival, and by street festival, that is STR and then capital EAT. It's a big community event. They have a lot of food, live music, family friendly games, and it's let's see, taking place on 8th and Penn Avenue, October 19th and 20th from 12 to 6 p.m. on both days. And she just emailed me out of the blue, asked me to say something about it on the podcast. I more than happy to help folks out in the community, and I hope they have a great turnout and that things go well. So that's in Pittsburgh coming up this weekend, the Street Festival.
And
Okay.
look, can I say one last thing about the offense?
Yeah.
You know, they hired a play calling head coach that was recently fired for going 7-10 3 straight years in Atlanta as their offensive coordinator, and they brought his misfits along. Scotty Miller,
Yeah.
Van Jefferson, Cordell Patterson,
Cole Pruitt.
And we wonder why our offense is terrible.
All right, fine. I'm gonna take this and take it a step. Hold on,
Go ahead, Mark.
I'm gonna take it a step further. Maybe it's the same direction you're going into. Is that Mike Tomlin saying, "I don't want somebody that's better than me"?
Oh,
I need to make sure that I have total control of this team. I want to make sure that I don't have somebody getting more attention than me.
I mean,
because there's better offensive coordinators out there
Yeah.
than fucking Arthur Smith. There were.
No, I mean, I said that, but I was told by the Steelers fanboys that I only knew that name because the media told me about it, and it's like no, I want a guy that wasn't 7-10 3 straight years in Atlanta as the primary play caller who didn't know how to use Drake London, Kyle Pitts, or Bijan Robinson.
There you go.
Because I don't know if you've seen the Falcons lately, but fucking Mr. Cole's department store himself, Kirk Cousins, is thrown for 500 yards.
Yeah.
And these dudes are putting up 30 plus points and 500 yards worth of offense. They're doing, and who are they doing it with? Darnell Mooney, who was a misfit.
Ray McLeod.
Ray McLeod. He was with us. Wasn't good enough for Matt Cannon and Randy Fichtner. And it's like, holy shit. Oh, hey, who is that guy? Who's Atlanta's offensive coordinator? Oh, Zach Robinson. No, we don't need that guy. We don't need him. Why?
We interviewed him, didn't we?
No.
Yeah. No, we
he
did
never came
interview
here.
one of those guys.
He never came here.
Okay, we interviewed one of the up-and-comers. I thought we did. Maybe not. Maybe. I know his name was tossed about, but
maybe I'm wrong about that. I apologize if I am. But no, he never. I swear he never came.
Okay, maybe I know.
Anyway,
his name might have been on a list, but
it was. He never came here.
Okay.
Anyway, but does Mike? Well, Mike Tomlin, he kept Bruce Arians and Dick LeBeau for the Cowher regime.
Yep.
Although Bruce Arians was the wide receivers coach and then was promoted to O coordinator because Wisenhunt was the O coordinator under Cowher.
Right.
But since then, Todd Haley was brought in to protect Ben, and I think there was ownership influence in that.
No doubt.
But after Haley and LeBeau, you have my buddy, my pal, my guy.
Well, I don't like bringing it up, and Melvin makes a good point. I don't think Mike is that shallow. I really don't believe he is either. But at some point, you got to ask that question because he's technically done the same damn thing on defense.
But I will say, Melvin, and again, I do love Mike. I really do. But I'm just tired of 7 years going into our 8th year of mid. It's terrible.
Yeah, we expect more.
And I'm sorry, but not even an assistant coach that he has gets a promotion. It's not like Mike Munchak going to Denver was a lateral move. I'm trying to think of any even assistant coach.
Well, wasn't Munch's excuse that his daughter lived out there and he wanted to be close
he
to
flat out
family
said it
and-
was family. He flat out
Yeah,
said it was
yeah.
family. But I'm trying to think of an assistant coach under Tomlin that was promoted or took a better job in the NFL, and I can't.
Ray Horton was a defensive backs coach that went to be defensive coordinator in Arizona, I believe.
Okay, so Pittsburgh West.
Yes,
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah.
What wasn't it Scotty Montgomery that went on to Duke? Wasn't he the head coach
Yeah.
at Duke for a year?
Or East Carolina or one of those.
Yeah,
like
something like
yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
to your point, there's a very short list.
What I was going to mention when you brought up Scotty Miller, so that absolute disaster class play where we tried to run this like double reverse and pitch it back to Fields, and then he got
Jesus.
sacked,
God.
right? When they showed the all 22 zoomed out version of that play,
Yeah.
I about shit myself because the guy running deep down the field is number 13, which is Scotty friggin' Miller. So Arthur Smith designed that play for a deep pass to Scotty fucking Miller. Like, and they showed it on the broadcast too. They were like, oh,
Yeah.
look, here's here it is. And this defensive end doesn't get fooled and just goes right after Fields. And I'm watching, and it's number 13 running down the field. And I'm like, okay, if you want to design this play, maybe design it to have your best wide receiver being the one running
Not
down
a bad
the
idea.
field,
Not a bad
not
idea.
like your fifth best wide receiver or
Pickens played the most snaps out of wide receivers, but his snap share overall was not good. And I sit there and think like, Christ, man, if your best wide receiver can't block or even try to block, like what value do you have? Like really, like what value do you have? Like even like, and I know Dallas is not good this year, but even a couple weeks ago, CeeDee Lamb, who's far superior to George Pickens,
Mm-hmm.
his ass was blocking. Like his ass was blocking and trying to block.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's effort or coaching or whatever. And on the old Twitter sphere, people say, well, Tomlin shouldn't have to worry about, babysitting grown men. It's like, then what the fuck is this? What's his job then? Like
You're right.
If he's supposed to be this great leader of men and this amazing players coach, why is it that he can't get a hold of? Why can't he get a handle on George Pickens? That blows my mind. If you're a players coach, you can relate to him. You can talk to him. You can get him to be committed. You can get him to be motivated. And I just like, I love Mike, but like the excuses for Mike, they just get even worse. Even I'm on a rant right now, but I'm saying the other day I on, because Tomlin talked about stats are for losers or stats are often for losers. I talked about he's terrible at clock management. He's terrible at challenges. And he once punted in that Cleveland Browns playoff game from his own 46 down 12. And I had this guy coming at me saying, like, I want stats, I want evidence, and not anecdotes. And I'm like, okay, I'm not basing this off of personal experience or some story.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2017, Mike Tomlin wins 28% of his challenges. And I gave him examples of his counterparts like Mike McCarthy, Sean Payton, John Harbaugh, and Tomlin is like 12% lower than the lowest of that group. He's like, this is selective data. It's like how fucking many times do you have to move the goalpost for Mike Tomlin? Like, he scoffs when you ask him questions about replay or challenges or analytics, but yet he's always on the wrong side of all of those things. And I'm not saying you have to sit there and have some geek like me sitting there and be like, oh, well, Mike, it says to go for it in this situation. I'm not saying he has to do that because there's obviously an emotion.
Yes, there's a lot more to it than just a number. Yep.
And there's a feel for it. But he'll sit there and get on a camera in front on national TV and be like, we don't live in our fears. And they punt from their own 48. And I'm just like, well, fucking go for it every once in a while.
I think it's well said, Scarps. I don't really have much to add to that. What I did want to
Thanks for
talk
the rant.
about. Yeah,
Appreciate
no,
it.
yeah. Soapbox, polish it off now.
Oh my God. Denver is torching the Saints. Dennis Allen should be fired. They have sacks, defensive touchdowns. It's hilarious right now.
It's amazing. It's amazing how this league turns week to week, isn't it? It's like a freaking soap opera. Defensively, one of the stats we were talking about today in our chat was the fact that the Steelers, I think only Dallas had disguised their defenses less than us this year. Was that correct, Ian?
Yeah.
And I don't know how much longer we can get away doing that. We're going to be playing a guy that may have diminished a little bit in his overall abilities, but he's a damn smart quarterback still. And I'm a little concerned that if we keep doing this vanilla bullshit, he's just going to have a field day against us.
Yeah, if we keep, I mean, not only are we running basic bitch defense, Ryan wasn't here for me to using that millennialism
Right.
or Zoomerism, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but I mean, we're rushing 4 and playing cover 2 behind it. We're not doing anything like unique or different. It's basically, let's just keep things in front of us and tackle the catch and hope TJ Watt knocks the ball out at some point. It is basically what our defense is right now. And that's not going to be good enough when we get into the second half of the season and have to play, Kansas City and Buffalo and teams like that. It's just not. Actually, wait, we don't play Buffalo.
We don't have Buffalo, but
we got Kansas City though.
Kansas City, we got to play, a very up and coming Washington team. We still have 2 with Philly, 2 with Baltimore.
Yeah,
got to play Philly. Games. Yeah, I mean,
and Melvin's absolutely right that we most definitely kept the wrong defensive coordinator. Like, Brian Flores is flourishing in Minnesota and is a large part of why that team is playing so
with
good.
A lot less talent.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they're actually like scheming shit and running stuff that they're maximizes the talents of their players. Like, you want to know why Minka doesn't have a pick this year? Well, because we're not disguising any coverages. He's just lining up and standing there and not.
He isn't doing anything this year, but
yeah,
digress.
Well, that's the point, though, right? Like, if you disguise your coverage a little bit, maybe he winds up somewhere the quarterback doesn't expect him to be, instead of just lining up in cover 2 and then running cover 2.
Yeah, and I mean, what have they done? They've moved from cover 2 to occasionally single high, and that's been pretty much about it.
Yeah,
and we play the DBs so far off all the time. It just let's see some variation.
Yeah.
I mean, remember maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago when there was one particular play when Watt actually left the right outside linebacker and was actually floating in the middle, and I think he actually rushed up the middle. It was like, whoa, holy shit, variation. And then we never saw it again. That was it.
And this is, I find this funny because I think about this quite often. But Brian Flores, after he left the Steelers, talked about his schemes or taking notes from Pitt football head coach Pat Narduzzi. He literally I'll put there's fucking stories about this because he literally credited Narduzzi.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting there thinking like, he didn't credit Mike Tomlin, and I'm not saying that he.
It's a fair point.
I'm not saying he didn't take anything he learned from Mike Tomlin, but think. Oh boy, here we go. Think about this. How many people have you worked for in your life, and you were like, how the fuck did this person get where they are in life? They're
no comment.
And to be fair, I am not. I have never been a supervisor, so you can't say that about me. But the point is like, it's almost like okay, was the Flores hire for good PR? Probably, yeah, it was.
I tend to believe it was mostly good PR.
But also, if you're gonna bring a guy like that and with his pedigree, And yeah, I know he shit on Tua, but
Right.
if you're gonna bring a guy like that and his pedigree there, don't you take enough notes from him where you're like, you know what, this guy's pretty fucking good. We can't let him go. And
Yeah.
and the Tomlin defenders will say, oh well, they were never going to keep him anyway. What do you
Why not?
mean? Why not? Like, is like what's more important? What's more important to you? Paying Terrell Austin $500,000 to go away? Like, and I'll never forget this because, as you know, like I'm critical of Minka because I think Minka is too good of a player to be in this sort of drought.
I agree.
Remember last year when like Minka basically called him out and it was on camera and was telling him what defense to run against the Packers in that final play?
Yes.
And I'm sitting there
Yes.
thinking, like, listen, I, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not. I could never imagine Troy Polamalu saying that to Dick LeBeau in front of people, let alone in private. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
You have to trust that your coordinator or position coach is putting you in the best spot to succeed. And for Minka to be like, what the fuck we do? Like, this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It tells me all I need to know. And it tells me even more that Mike Tomlin is heavily involved in the defense. And I'm going to say this. Besides TJ Watt and Cam and maybe, I don't know, Dante Jackson, who actually has been a pretty good pick.
Deshaun Elliott's been solid.
Yeah. Deshaun Elliott too. But
yeah.
I don't think this defense is as good as people think. Like we keep saying elite this and elite that. And it's like the Raiders moved the ball the other day.
Yeah.
They did. They moved the football.
Yes. Yes. They were one punched football from being down 7 and with momentum.
And I'm not saying they were gonna beat us.
Right.
But like that's a JV squad moving the football. Like what is a good like we'll talk about it. Anyway, getting back to our defense, this is gonna be a bad week for our defense. TJ might get his, but Aaron Rodgers is going to dissect us.
Oh,
Aaron Rodgers, even with a weak arm, is going to pick us apart if we don't make adjustments.
I agree with Matt. The Steelers have always been large part of bend don't break. Yards, give up yards, that's fine, but just don't give up points. And for a long time, that's been very much the way it's been. And I think Melvin's got a solid question here as well. Tomlin lost his shit, or the Rooneys have more control on things than we really know money-wise. I tend to believe that there's probably a lot of stuff that none of us will ever know. A lot of us that think we'll know, but I look and to Freak's point, the Steelers defense is good. I just don't think it's as good as it could be. I mean,
how were they against Joe Flacco?
Shitty.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not talking about an elite defense here. I think it's a good defense. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's elite. I think it's a good defense. It's a defense that should be able to win you some games if you're scoring over 20 points a game. But
yes,
that's a bit of a problem too.
Yeah.
In and of itself.
Here's the other thing that I'll say. It's not like Terrell Austin has this massive history of success in the NFL, right?
Like, that too.
He was the defensive coordinator for the Lions for 4 years, and they were in the bottom half of the league in most defensive categories, points and yards, in 3 out of those 4 seasons. 1 year they were top 5 in both when Ndamukong Suh was like on his shit and just like playing incredible.
Yep.
But then he went to Cincinnati and was there for 1 year, and they were like dead last in yards and 30th in points against and were horrible. And then Mike Tomlin's like, oh yeah, this sounds like a guy I want to hire as my senior defensive assistant after he got fired in Cincinnati. And
yes,
the other thing I'll say about Terrell Austin, like, okay, or not Terrell Austin, sorry. The other thing I'll say about Brian Flores, okay, maybe you're not going to be able to keep him long term. Tomlin likes stability. Maybe what some of the reasons why he makes safe hires for his coordinators is that he likes the stability of keeping those guys around and isn't like, oh, I don't want to hire a young buck offensive coordinator who's going to be so good he gets hired to be a head coach in 2 years because then I got to go hire somebody else.
That's ridiculous.
It's
It is ridiculous.
But that's what I'm saying. Like
you're not wrong now.
Offensive coordinators in this league have 2 career trajectories. They either get fired or become a head coach. That's it. Offensive coordinators do not stick around longer than like 2 to 3 years in this league. I've been tracking this for like 3 years
you're
now.
right, Ian. You're totally right.
I can go back on the data if the Gen Xers out there really want to see my data, because that's a hallmark of the Gen X generation is I don't believe you. Let me see your data. At any rate, the other thing I'll say about Flores, so maybe they didn't think they could keep Flores long term. Okay, if you keep him for one more year, and he gets hired as a head coach, you get a 3rd round compensatory draft pick for him, because the way that the NFL's like minority hiring compensation formula works is that if you have a minority coach or GM who you hire from another team, that the team you hire him from, if he was there for 2 or more years, gets a 3rd round comp pick. Or maybe it's 2 3rd round comp picks. It's either 1 or 2. Either way, if we had kept him for 1 more year and he had gotten a head coaching gig, we could have gotten a 3rd round comp pick for losing him in head coaching free agency, which like is worth 1 more year of investment to me.
Right.
It's just, and now he's in his 2nd year in Minnesota.
Yep.
So now if he gets hired after this year to be a head coach somewhere, then Minnesota's going to get 1, maybe 2 3rd round comp picks. I got to look that up.
I got to do. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
It's at least 1. It might be 2, but I don't remember for sure. The one other thing, I'm on my soapbox now about this. The other stupid thing about that minority hiring rule, like, I'm all for trying to get people more opportunities, but the downside is you only get credit, quote unquote, or a team only gets credit for developing a minority candidate if they get hired by another team. So like Omar Khan, the Steelers, if the Steelers had hired Omar Khan as general manager from another team, that team would have gotten 3rd round comp picks. But because he was an internal promotion, the Steelers don't. And to me, that kind of seems like backwards logic. Like,
absolutely,
yes, you want to promote hiring minority candidates, you want to promote developing them into these roles. But if you have an internal promotion of a guy, why shouldn't you get rewarded for doing that too?
I agree.
Like, because you developed him. Why do you only get rewarded if you develop a guy that gets hired by somebody else? Why can't you get rewarded if you promote him too? Like, that just.
No,
sorry, I'm on a soapbox about this.
No, we've had that conversation in our private chats, and I agree.
That portion of the rule has never made sense.
It's dumb. I before we get to our picks and Kasem and stuff for tonight, a couple of like non-field related things. Melvin mentioned that he liked the Saints hats. Speaking of, the Steelers will be in their throwbacks this weekend.
Yeah,
they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Super Bowl IX. And so they'll have the gray face masks and the block numerals, which I have advocated for years need to return as the original and everyday uniform of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know that falls on deaf ears, but hopefully when Art tunes into this tomorrow morning, he will hear that. And secondly, the Cleveland Browns have announced that they are not going to take the city's offer of quite a bit of money to redo the stadium there on the lakefront. They want to move out to the burbs and build a dome. That's right, kids. The AFC North will have a team with a dome. Bullshit. That's awful. Just awful. But I think it's coming for everybody. Most teams, I think it's coming.
Well, I think like we've talked about on the show before that a lot of teams now want to be able to use their stadiums for year-round events. It's not just a football stadium anymore. It's concerts. It's everything else that they want to do year-round as a venue.
You need an attraction.
It's exactly what Jimmy Haslam said today. He said, we want to build a dome. We want to use it year-round. We want to have an entertainment district. He said everything that you would expect him to say in that regard.
And I know Steelers fans think it's blasphemous and sacrilegious to think that way, but don't want to get political here, but Allegheny County is in a deficit, and we're trying to figure out ways where we can get money. So the regional economy could be boosted by a venue of that status that could host NCAA Final Fours and championships, college football playoffs, something like that. Maybe a Super Bowl. And then although I say that, but look what Buffalo did. They're building a place, but it doesn't have a dome.
Right.
It is
open.
open.
Have a hole in the roof.
Yeah.
So she said, call God, CUEUPU.
The other thing is, I mean, you could build a stadium with a retractable roof and still play football in the snow, but then put the dome up for other events. I mean,
I agree.
Done that
I would be open to that. But
but football should be played in the elements. Football played in the dome is stupid.
Agreed. I did allow me. You both have gotten on your soapbox tonight, so allow me to get on mine just for a brief minute here. I do not like the politicizing, of sports. I can't stand it. Tim Walz was in the Great Hall the other day. Trump is supposed to be at the game Sunday. I can't stand this shit. I can't stand it. They would not be there if they weren't campaigning. Stop using them to get votes. The only reason they're coming there is to get votes. That's it. It drives me insane. And I'll just leave it at that. So I'm not going to be on my soapbox that long. I don't care what fucking party is involved. I can't stand getting in. Sports is supposed to be our escape from all that bullshit, and yet we're going to have to deal with it and have dealt with it. So I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate that it was an argument against both sides, because yes, I think both sides take advantage of our emotions, and they're like,
right. And in the last thing I want to do is make this show anything like that, because I want this show to also be an escape from all of the stuff that goes on outside and everything else. But it just irritates me to see politicians using sports franchises as platforms for their politics, because then it gets the players involved.
I was about to make sorry, guy.
Yeah, I mean, it gets players involved. They get asked questions by reporters. They end up saying things they probably don't want to say. And I agree, Vinny. Both sides become annoying, and it just ruins it for me. I don't care. I will deal with you in my own world and at my own time. I want to watch Pittsburgh Steelers play football.
And isn't it, Tim Walz from Minnesota, Bud Grant never won a thing, but it's just
ironic.
I'm an asshole for saying that.
Maybe, yeah.
They're eating the cats and dogs. I'm just saying. That was terrible. That was like a Casey Trump. I hate myself for that. Whatever.
Casey just had sex with Trump, I think.
Wow, that'd be weird.
Wow,
I'm dead.
Right. I love the accordion. It's my favorite part. Ian, what do you got this weekend coming up for the Jets coming in Sunday Night Football? Probably going to see Davante Adams.
Yeah.
How do you think this one plays out?
We're definitely going to see Davante Adams. And as weird as it sounds, I think between what JPJ and Dante Jackson have been able to do, they can find a way to not prevent Davante Adams from being a factor, because you're not going to do that, but at least maybe contain him a little bit. And for some reason, Garrett Wilson isn't one of Aaron Rodgers' dudes yet. So the guy who actually kind of scares me is Allen Lazard. That coming out of the slot, Beanie Bishop has been okay on early downs, pretty good in run support, but not great if he has to cover down the field. But Rodgers is just going to chuck the ball up there and kind of see what happens sometimes, which in theory means our defensive backs could come up with a few picks in this game if they've got their head on a swivel and had a defensive coordinator that could put them in position to succeed. I think it's going to look a little choppy with Russ to start. I think we're going to struggle a bit, especially in the first quarter, and everyone's going to be like, I can't believe we benched Justin Fields for this, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to go with another Mike Tomlin special in a rock fight, because the Jets have a pretty darn good defense. So I'll go Steelers. 2 touchdowns for Russ, 2 field goals. Steelers 20, Jets 16. 20 to 16 Steelers.
20 to 16 Steelers.
Yeah.
Got it. Scarps, what do you got?
So I actually think that the acquisition of Davante Adams helps Garrett Wilson. So Garrett Wilson in his last 3 games has been targeted 41 times. And if you're focusing on Davante and Allen Lazard, and then Conklin's a decent tight end. I mean, he's okay, he's whatever. But I'm just gonna say it. We haven't talked about Breece Hall at all, and Breece Hall has been solid all year. He really hasn't exploded like everybody thought he would because of the fantasy football numbers. But I just get back to the quarterback, and it's Aaron Rodgers, and I saw firsthand Aaron Rodgers pick us apart in Super Bowl 45. It was one of the greatest passing performances I've ever seen in my life. Ryan Clark talks extensively about the throws that he was making that game.
Yeah.
And our defense is predictable, and I don't care who that's on. And if they don't make adjustments, it's going to be a long night. This is a Jets victory. Jets money line to the moon. I have the Jets 27-20.
Okay, you're stealing my thunder a little bit. I've had a bad feeling about this one all week. It got worse when the Adams trade went down. Not even so much that I think he's going to affect us that much. I just keep going back to our issues offensively, especially if we switch quarterbacks, plus the fact we're so damn vanilla on defense. I think we'll find ways to keep it interesting. I've got the Jets 23-17. I just got a feeling, and then we'll bounce back against the Giants. But for now, that's what I'm seeing. Casey Kasem, are you there?
Always.
Oh
boy. Casey's Coast to Coast, American Top 40. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week that was October 17th, 1992. Our favorite correspondent, Ryan, is back with us again this week, and he writes, Dear Casey, I'm not sure if you saw it, but the legend herself, Stevie Nicks, performed on the most recent Saturday Night Live. Apparently, Stevie Nicks couldn't resist singing another song about her shitty ex-boyfriend. But don't laugh, Casey. Taylor Swift has made an empire doing the exact same thing. But it got me thinking about Fleetwood Mac, in particular, their Rumors album, which is considered one of the greatest records of all time. Casey, who did more cocaine in the 1970s? Fleetwood Mac or the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line? As the Steelers' opposing quarterback this week would tell you, do your own research. Speaking of rumors, it appears that Justin Fields will not be starting on Sunday night. Russell Wilson will be making his Steelers debut. Based on the Fields Fiends reactions, you would have thought Mike Tomlin was replacing Drew Brees with Drew Carey. Cleveland rocks. Just kidding, it sucks. Casey, listen, I can see why they're going to Russ. I can also see why fans are questioning the decision. However, the Picketologists, excuse me, that was 2023. The Fields Fiends in 2024 act like he hasn't made mistakes. He's not seeing the field well. He's also been fortunate to not have more turnovers. He leads the league with 6 fumbles. But if you listen to the Fields Fiends, you'd think he was Jesus Christ himself. The Fields Fiends are higher than John Kolb and Randy Grossman at a Fleetwood Mac concert in 1978. Full circle, Casey.
Full circle.
Is that the one at Three Rivers?
Yeah. It might have been the Tusk Tour. Again, Casey, I'm not saying Fields was bad, but he also wasn't good. We've been so starved for half-decent quarterback play, thanks to Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky, that we'll take anything we can get. Justin, I thank you for your services. Your time may not be over, but for now, we've come to the end of the road.
Oh,
well, Ryan, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars, and keep your radio tuned right where it is, staying at number 1 this week. Here's Boys to Men with End of the Road.
I did not see that coming. I figured 92 it was going to be some grunge thing.
All the Fleetwood Mac references
Right.
just to lead up to Boys to Men.
Boys to Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, man. All right.
Well
Great
done,
stuff as always. Thank you, Casey Kasem. Thank you to everybody who's been with us tonight. You guys are fantastic. You know that. We don't even need to tell you that, but we like to anyway. Enjoy the game this week. It is a night game, so take a nap during the day. If you're old like me, you're going to need one. And good luck to everybody. Enjoy the game. And for these guys, this is me signing off on the SCB Steelers Podcast, presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck, sort of, maybe. I don't know. They're
no.
playing better.
They're pretty good, actually.